news, as I did not do a good news next week episode this week. Gates Foundation mission shut down in India for their big pharma ties. And we grabbed this via India Times. India has shut down Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation on a critical national health mission and possible conflict of interest issues arising from the foundation's ties with pharmaceutical companies being just one of the reasons. All financial ties of the country's immunization advisory body with the Gates Foundation have been cut off. India Times has learned that the government's decision was informed by, among other factors, arguments from senior medical professionals centered around conflict of interest issues. There were questions about the Gates Foundation's ties with pharmaceutical companies and the possible influence this may have had on the country's vaccination strategy. Global Policy Forum raised some of these concerns in a study from December 2015 called Philanthropic Power and Development: Who Shapes the Agenda? It cautioned on the growing influence, whether sought or unsought, of the large global philanthropic foundations, especially the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, on political discourse and agenda setting. A lot of times it's kind of like whack-a-mole with eugenics-obsessed so-called elites like the Gates Foundation, but we'll take a good whack on them. James?
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, let's take this when we can get it. I'm not sure it exactly spells the end for Gates's immunization plans, but at any rate, it is an interesting move. And I would like to think this is part of that kind of dominoes that we've seen with Kazakhstan stripping U.S. aid workers of diplomatic immunity, and then China passing laws regulating NGOs, and then Russia declared the National Endowment for Democracy an undesirable NGO. India placed the Ford Foundation on a security watch list. All of this happened in the last couple of years. I wrote an article about this at the time back in 2015 called Beware Americans Bearing Gifts, NGOs as Trojan Horses. That I will put in the show notes so people can read through about that. But I think it is, I mean, it's obviously, I'd like to think it's part and parcel of that. And yet, I know that it's not like there's any love lost between Narendra Modi and Bill Gates. In fact, Gates was in town visiting Modi and the top-ranking Indian parliamentarians in the very week of the demonetization, and he was praising it and saying how, this will springboard the India into the new fintech revolution and blah blah blah. So I'm not sure this is necessarily directed at Gates per se. I think there may be obviously different organizations that are involved in putting pressure on the government to try to dissociate themselves with the Gates Foundation for a number of reasons. And as you say, let's take it for the victory as it is, but it's obviously not the final victory.